Hey everyone, my name is Lemery, and this is my portion of the Strategic Analysis of Gap Incorporated. This is for our Management 499 course, and today I will be covering the external strategy side, so the vision, the opportunities, the threats, the competition, and our key financial ratios, while my partner Olivia will then present the internal analysis in her portion. So let's go ahead and get started. So this vision statement is meant to reflect both where Gap wants to go and who they want to become. Right now, they've been more known for being affordable and recognizable, but they're losing ground in their innovation and their impact. So I tried to create something that's still realistic for the company, but more inspiring and about where they want to go and who they want to become. I believe that it speaks to being that their company and this vision statement speaks to being a leader in sustainability, in style, and in their community impact. So it's not just about fashion, it's about how fashion can make people feel confident and included while still being both responsible and ethical to our world. So that's how I came up with this vision statement. Gap Inc. strives to become the global leader in accessible, sustainable fashion by inspiring confidence, promoting individuality, and advancing ethical practices, one garment, one customer, and one community at a time. So for this slide here, I created what's called an EFE matrix, or an external factor evaluation matrix. This is a strategy tool and it helps evaluate how well a company is responding to their external factors. These are things that are outside of their control, like the industry trends, economic shifts, competitor behavior, and changes in the customer expectations. So to build this matrix, I started by identifying 5 key opportunities and 5 threats that Gap is currently facing. These are also similar to what I have included in my SWOT analysis as well. I chose things like global expansion, the rise of sustainable fashion, inflation, fast fashion competitors, and the shift to moving their online shopping. Because these are all big issues showing up across the retail industry right now. So once I found these 10 factors, I had to assign a weight to each one of them, which is based on how important I think that factor is to Gap's future. These weights have different ranges, but they all add up to a 100% total. So then after you give a weight, then you look at the rating. I get to choose a rating between 1 and 4, depending on how well I believe Gap is currently responding to those specific challenges or these opportunities. I chose a rating of 1, meaning that the company is responding very poorly in this area, and a rating of 4 means that they're doing an above average, excellent job. So the score that you have for this is going to be the factor and the weight multiplied by the rating. So for example here, I have global expansion as a weight of 12% because I do believe it's one of the most important opportunities that Gap has. Then I rated Gap as a response of 3 since they've made some good progress in this area, but they are definitely not leading globally yet. So this then gives a weighted score of about 36%. I repeated that process for all 10 of these factors, and using all of this case study really just kind of helps us see where Gap is in their current strategies. So when we add up all of these scores with the EFE matrix, we get 2.16, which I think is behind my little camera here. So that number is meaningful because the average score for this matrix is about 2.5. So if you have a company scoring above 2.5, it means that they're responding really well to these external factors. But if you have a score below that, which in our case here, Gap has a 2.16, this just simply means that they're underperforming when it comes to them trying to respond to these outside forces. So they're not technically failing, but they really are starting to begin to fall behind, especially when you start to compare them to other companies, which we'll see throughout this analysis, such as TJ Maxx and Ross. So even though this doesn't give us a perfect score, it does give us a snapshot of where Gap is, where they're going, and what they're working towards, and where they need to be working better just to be more proactive to be able to move forward. Gap has some exciting opportunities here that could really help move the needle forward for them. They're not super present in Europe or Asia right now, and those markets do seem to be growing, so that could be a really great opportunity for them to be able to create a presence over there. They also have talked about sustainability, but they could do more to start leading more in that space because this is something that customers have voiced an opinion about that they really do care about. They also could upgrade their online platform to help the shopping experience feel more personalized and help it feel a little bit more modern because it could help to reach those younger buyers, those ones that are wanting to have access to clothes quicker and easier and not have to go to a mall to be able to buy their clothes. I also think that their smaller premium brands like Athleta have a ton of potential if they choose how to invest wisely in expanding these different parts of their company, and just being able to cater to these smaller premium brands that people might be coming specifically looking for these brands at their stores or online shopping. So these are just a few of the opportunities that I came up for Gap. Now, these are some of the biggest threats that I think are putting some pressure on Gap from the outside. They have a lot of other discount stores like TJX and Ross that are hard to beat on their price. Their online competitors like Shein are also faster and cheaper. And then to top all of that off, we have costs across the board that are rising. We have wages increasing, materials increasing, shipping increasing, just all around we have inflation going everywhere and increasing a lot in every area of the business. And since there's a lot of Gap stores that are still in a physical mall, like a shopping mall, the drop in the people that actually are walking through malls, the foot traffic within these malls has gone down drastically. So it's really starting to hurt Gap. And if the economy continues to slow down like we already are seeing, people are going to continue to cut back on more of that frivolous stuff, which clothing and things like that are, considered more of that opportunity shopping, opportunity buying. When you have a little excess and a little extra money, then you choose to spend money. And we are definitely not sitting in a position where that is something that's happening right now. So I feel like Gap is really going to need to start to pivot really quickly in some of these areas, if they have any chance to continue moving forward and look at these threats. All right, so for this part of the project, we use something called a competitive profile matrix, or a CPM. And this is to compare how Gap then is doing against two of the main competitors. Within the textbook, it gave us their companies that they wanted us to compare against as TJX and the Ross stores. So in this matrix, let's go ahead and evaluate how each company is performing within the industry based on 10 shared success factors. And these are factors that we agreed on that we were then going to compare every store against. So we looked at things like price competitiveness, product quality, store locations, financial strength, and a lot of other things. So Olivia and I worked together to go ahead and choose these 10 success factors based on the case study and all of the examples that we found within the textbook. We also then assigned a weight to each one of them based on how important we felt like it was to all of the different companies' success. And then once we had all of these sets, then we went ahead and split it up, and I did the TGX ratings and score, and then she went ahead and did the Ross ratings and score. So she's going to go ahead and cover the Ross portion and her part of the presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and do the TGX in here. So for each company was rated from 1 to 4. Again, these ratings mean 1 as very poor performance, 4 means that it's probably the industry standard, they're doing excellent, above average. And then we went ahead again, we multiplied the rating times the weight, and we got the weighted score for each of these success factors for each of the companies. So in the end, we ended up with all 10 scores to get the company's total. So focusing on the Gap versus the TJX comparison, which is what I looked at, there's a few interesting things that showed up. First, I noticed that TJX is outperforming Gap in several of the very important areas, like pricing, profitability, and market share. So for example, we see that TJX has significantly higher total revenue and net income, which I gave them earned a perfect score in both of these financial strength categories. Because even though Gap is still profitable, they're just not keeping up on the front that I had to give them a little bit slower or a little bit lower score compared to TJX. This is also showing us that TJX also leads in price competitiveness, which is one of their biggest strengths, which if you've ever been to a TJ Maxx or any of the TJX stores, yes, they are very well known for great affordable prices. Um, let's see, with TJX, their business model is all about offering discounts, off-price items, and they do it really well. That is exactly how they have that's exactly what their brand is. So even though Gap can't quite compete on the same level of pricing with TJX, that's why TJX did get a higher score in this category as well. So where Gap does hold its own with itself is in all of the store locations and their online presence. They do have a lot of store locations and they have started to move into that online presence. Um, Gap has a large global footprint and they do have a strong e-commerce platform, which has helped them in their score here. Even though it's close, it is still a little bit better than TJ Maxx in these areas. Gap has also scored slightly higher in their employee base in their HR strength, which reflects what I believe reflects their longstanding leadership and their structure and their investment in talents and their employees and how they train their employees, even though they've had some recent challenges. And then overall, I just want to go ahead and say that TJ Maxx did come out ahead with their total score of being 3.74, while Gap scored much lower at 3.19. So Gap is kind of being competitive in some of these areas, especially like their branding and on their infrastructure. But mostly TJ Maxx has clearly got an edge in the financial performance, their pricing, their strategy, and really their overall market dominance. So this comparison just kind of shows us that Gap needs to focus in some of these areas if they want to move forward and if they want to stay relevant. They're going to need to start strengthening their profitability and just having some more value-driven pricing to then be able to better compete with these huge discount retail spaces like TJ Maxx. So that's just my portion of the matrix. I'm going to go ahead and let Olivia go over the other portion, over Ross's performance and how it compares to Gap as well. All right, for this slide, I just went ahead and focused on three of the financial ratios that are going to help us better understand how Gap is performing. So I focused on return on assets, return on equity, and the current ratio. So let's go ahead and get started with the ROA, which is the return on assets. This ratio shows us how much profit a company makes from what it owns. So like its stores, its inventory, the technology. And the formula to find this is net income divided by the total assets. So for Gap, let's go ahead and look specifically that they have 800 million divided by 7,989 million, which gives us an ROA of 10.61%. So this just simply means that Gap earns about 10.6 cents in profit for every dollar of the assets that it owns. I also calculated the same ratio for TJX, which is one of Gap's biggest competitors. TJX had about 3,642 million in net income and 27,282 million in total assets, giving them an ROA of 13.35. So even though both companies are profitable, again, this is showing us that TJX is also earning more from its own assets. They're using their resources more efficiently than Gap. So let's go ahead and look at the ROE, which is the return on equity. Now this ratio is showing us how much profit Gap makes from the money that the shareholders who have invested in the company. This formula is net income divided by total equity. So we divide 848 million by 3,144 million, which then gives us an ROE of 26.96%. Now that's actually a really strong return, meaning that Gap is doing well at generating their profit from their equity base. Now let's go ahead and look at the current ratio. This checks how well Gap can pay its short-term financial bills, payroll, and their suppliers. The formula for this is current assets divided by their current liabilities. So Gap has 4,568 million in their current assets and 2,461 million in current liabilities. So this gives us a current ratio of 1.86. That simply means that Gap has almost twice as many assets as it needs to cover what it owes in the short term, which is a positive sign. Really, these ratios are just showing us that Gap is in a pretty stable place when it comes to their short-term finances, and they're still generating a decent profit to be able to keep moving forward. Even though when you compare them to TJ Maxx, they have room to improve to keep up with their competitors, they're still doing pretty well in the overall scheme of things. So this wraps up my portion of the analysis, and I just wanted to go ahead and do a quick summary of what I had seen with all of this, is that Gap does have the potential to come back strong, but they really do need to focus on a few of these key areas. They need to improve their online shopping experience. innovating their product delivery, and just lowering their overall debt load. The trends in the industry are moving towards personalization, ethics, and speed. So, in these areas, Gap does really need to look at trying to catch up. In the next part of this project, my partner Olivia is going to go ahead and share her insights on the internal analysis, mission statement, and all the other half of the strategic matrix so that you can go ahead and see the full picture. And these are also just the references from the textbook that we got all of our numbers from. So, thank you.